What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in. Episode 2 of the Daily Dose Podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. This episode is sponsored by Jackpack LLC, all organically grown cannabis right here in New Mexico. On today's episode, we're going over UFC 313, breaking down all my predictions from last week's episode. We're going to talk about Ilya's big announcement. Obviously, he has a fight coming. It's going to be at 155 pounds. Who could that be against? Dana finally teamed up with the Turkish Al Sheikh to come out with the TKO Boxing League. That should be interesting. Who's going to be on there? What kind of fights are they doing? And then, of course, this weekend coming up, we got a fight night, Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. This is a rematch. Vettori had got the decision the first time. Overall, kind of a boring card, honestly, but we'll get into it here a little later. So, the main card, first fight on there of the pay-per-view, we had Bobby Green versus Rufy. And man, originally I was picking Bobby Green. I thought he was going to kind of pull out a decision. As it got closer, I realized who this guy was. I've seen him fight. He's a part of those fight nerds with John Silva and them. And man, those are some bad dudes. I don't know. USADA, or whatever the new thing is, you guys might want to go to Brazil because those guys are touching people and they're just going to sleep. No, I'm just talking shit. But yeah, it was a really good fight. The one thing Bobby Green you can't do is fight with your hands down, especially at this level. So it looks cool and it works till it doesn't. He was doing his hand down. He kind of comes in and out. And so what Rufy did is kind of throw that left hook to bait him back. Spinning heel kick right to the face. I mean, that was just beautiful. Face down, ass up, fell forward. Beautiful knockout. Congrats to Rufy and the fight nerds. They're on fire. Like I said, let's go see. Make sure everything's all good down there. Hopefully Bobby Green is good. We'll see what happens. He's kind of on the back end of his career, so see what he does next. Amanda Lemos was the next one. Pretty boring fight. Kind of went, we knew it was going to go to the decision. Kind of had a lot of ground exchanges. But, the UFC always does that kind of around the main card. You got to put a fight on there that is kind of for people to go get your food, get your popcorn, pee break, whatever it may be. They probably should have done it first fight of the pay-per-view, being that the rest of the fights were really good after that. But that's how it goes sometimes. Then after that, you had Ignacio Baja-Mendez and Turner. So I did choose Baja-Mendez. I thought he was going to maybe kind of finish Turner in the later rounds, like, end of round 2, beginning round 3. But they got into a ground exchange, and it looked like Turner was actually about to get out of it, and then he just fell back into it, got triangle choked, ended up tapping out, and he actually retired, at age 30. But to be honest, it's like if you're in the UFC, and you're getting losses and doesn't look like you're going to be the world champion and that's your goal, I respect that decision to retire. It's not a sport you want to play around in. You want to hang around in. Some of these guys take way too much damage, and they're not even making that much money. So, if he comes back, he's athletic. He's really good. He's tall for the weight class, but, props to him if he decided it's just not for him. So, Baja-Mendez is a little younger, a little fresher, wants a little more. Great performance by him. So, it'll be cool to see kind of where he progresses, where he ends up. That 155 division always has killers in there. So, just as the co-main event, of course, it was supposed to be Hooker and Gaethje, but we got a pretty good fight from him and Fiziev. Fiziev must have been in pretty good shape. Did look like he was kind of getting tired in round 3, but one thing about Gaethje is that, man, he's got some beautiful uppercuts. And sometimes with those uppercuts, you can't even really see them, but you got to just throw them. And in some of those exchanges, he was putting him with the perfect timing, beautiful uppercuts, typical Gaethje performance, did good. He's in a weird spot. I guess maybe he fights, after Islam fights. I think we know who Islam's going to fight next. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But maybe after that, he could fight Islam. You know what I mean? He's kind of up there, or fight Charles or someone. But he's number 3. He stays in that top position. We'll see what happens. And then, of course, on to the main event. And by the way, I did pick Gaethje, so I was right on all of those. And then, of course, Alex Pereira. I had Poatan. Now, I think he did better than a lot of people think. I had him winning rounds 1 and 5. I have to go back and watch it and see. But I think a couple takeaways were that I think Ankalaev was the best fighter he's fought in the UFC, the hardest puncher, and just kind of fought him differently than anybody else has. So it was multiple challenges coming at him at once. So it kind of made him a little more defensive. He was on his back foot a lot, and he wasn't really doing what brought him to the dance. We didn't see him throw that left hook. We didn't see him walking Ankalaev down. I think he was a little too much worried about the takedowns. He did go 12 for 12 on the takedown defense, so I did say it was going to be a little easier said than done taking him down, but I think he almost was worried about it too much, where he was forgetting to put up his offense, swing that left hook, walk him down, do what got him to the dance. Wasn't a terrible performance. I definitely think he could make some adjustments and run it back. I think he has to. If he wants to go up to heavyweight, it's always hard to be like, no, let's go up to heavyweight, let him fight John Jones, Tom Aspinall, whatever it may be. It's hard to do it off a loss. It's not impossible, so he might have to right the wrong on that. But Ankalaev did good. He landed some great counters. He brought the pressure. He dropped him in the second round. So props to him as well. Overall, it was a good fight, but I think it was a lot closer than people think. And, of course, like biggest hater in the world, Alex Pereira's ex-wife comes out and congratulates him on his downfall and his loss. That's the weakest thing a person can do. I bet he beats the shit out of your new husband and Buddy wouldn't say anything to him. But that's an example of a lame, just hating on people's success. Typical hater shit. So I just wanted to address that. Alex is a beast. And, to his ex-wife, your man would never even hold Buddy's jockstrap. So show the fuck out. But, Poatan will be back. Guaranteed. That's not the last we see of him. He'll come back. He'll have a big fight. And, we'll see what Ankalaev does with the belt. I think that Dana wants the rematch ASAP. He didn't look too happy to see Ankalaev. And it's not that he has anything against him personally. He's just a hard person to market. He doesn't have a huge following. He's not a big trash talker. He's not flashy. They got Bilal. They got Islam. They got a lot of these Marab. They got a lot of these quieter champions who aren't going to necessarily bring in the eyeballs that they need. So kind of a weird time, but, we'll see what happens. Props to Ankalaev and Poatan will be back. So the next thing we're going to address is Ilya's big announcement. Now, Ilya Toporia said his next announcement is going to be the craziest thing ever. It's going to blow our mind. I've been hearing two things. I've been hearing that it's going to be him and Islam for the 155 title, International Fight Week. And the one that I really just don't think, but we've been hearing that it might be him and Conor McGregor at 155 pounds, which, like I said, that boy Conor's on yachts doing booger sugar, fucking drunk as hell at bare knuckle, living his life. So I don't think he's anywhere near a fight or 155 pounds. So, I think people just like to throw stuff out there to see what happens. But, if he steps in there and fights Islam's, I would say, damn, buddy has some big nuts. You know what I mean? Like, that shit is crazy. I don't know. He sees something we don't. When they go to the stare downs, they're going to be a lot bigger, and Islam's just not some random guy at 155 pounds. Like, Islam is that guy, knocking people out, submitting people, taking people down. We'll see. I saw an interview with Eddie Alvarez, and he said that for Ilya's last camp, he was down there in Florida, and he was knocking people out. He was out wrestling the Dagestani guys. Like, supposedly he's really, really good, not just in striking, but in grappling and wrestling. So I'm definitely curious to see. I think that would be the only big announcements. I don't think they would put him with some random 55er. I don't think they'll put him with Poirier for Poirier's last fight. So if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say it's Islam versus Ilya. But we'll see what happens. Dana White announces he finally does it. He teams up with Turkish Al Sheikh, and he's coming out with a boxing league. He said they plan to do big fights, big events. They have a lot of people on the roster that are undefeated, and they plan to put them up against each other like the UFC. Let's let the best fight the best. I'm definitely excited about that. I'm curious to see how the pay structure is going to be. We know the UFC doesn't necessarily pay boxing numbers, but with the Sheik behind him, it might be a little different. Like I said, though, I'm really excited for them to put people up that should fight each other at the right time when people want to see it. Could be some big fights on the horizon, so curious to see how it turns out. This weekend, kind of another snooze fest. We got Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze 2. We've already seen it. There's a couple decent fights on the card, but overall, man, these fight nights are getting a little bit weak for sure. The one thing that UFC always stood out from boxing is that pretty much every fight on the card is going to be entertaining. You're going to enjoy it, 70% of them. And now it's like the last couple fight nights, maybe the main event and co-main event, maybe one other fight. But, I get that people got to come up and earn their spot. But let's try and mix it up a little better with some fights that we know. It's definitely getting a little boring on those fights. I mean, I usually tune in all week, every fight, tons of promotions, LFA, whatever it may be. But I'm even personally getting kind of tired with these fight nights. So hopefully they can put something together. So we'll see what happens. Overall, recap on the episode. Like I said, we went over 313. Bobby Green got the KO'd. I kind of saw that coming with the hands down. It's going to happen. Amanda Lemos, nothing crazy. Controlled, took her fight. Baja Mendez had a very, very impressive triangle choke over Jalen Turner. Gaethje did his Gaethje thing, the newer Gaethje, right, where he sticks and moves. He plans his shot a little better. He was getting in there exchanging a little bit, but he's still smarter than when we first saw him in the UFC, of course, And, some good fights. Main event, Alex Pereira, I think, one thing I probably didn't address is that I think all the takedown defense was starting to wear on his gas tank as well. By round 4 and 5, he looked pretty tired, although I thought he came back and won the 5th round. That also adds up, too, when you're used to striking and standing and banging. Although I'm sure his whole camp leading up to it, he did nothing but wrestling and stuff. It's different the night of, when the lights are on and it counts. So I think, like I said, I think that Ankalaev being like the hardest hitter, maybe that he's been in there in the UFC, just the best overall fighter. He put the pressure on him. He came to fight, I think. And then as well as just being so over worried about the takedowns, as well as defending all those takedowns, those kind of all made the performance the way it was. I don't think that was our typical, polished Alex Pereira. So I'm sure he'll be back soon. We'll see what happens. Ilya Toporia, hopefully they announce that soon so we could see what happens. Diego Lopez and Volk, of course, are fighting for his belt. I think maybe Diego Lopez can take that one. We'll talk about that as it gets closer. But, we'll see what Ilya, his big announcement is, because something's supposed to just blow our hair back. Dana's TKO Boxing League, pretty cool. He's been talking about coming up with a boxing league for a while. I think one of his main concerns was the money part. So with the Sheik backing him up, I think we could see some big matchups. And, of course, Dana knows what he's doing. The UFC is a well-oiled machine. They've been doing this for a while. I think he could bring some good things to the boxing. Marvin Vettori, Roman Dolidze, I don't really care, honestly. I mean, whoever wins not going to get a title shot or even be important, So let's work on those fight nights, get a little together. Come on, Dana. But no, I appreciate you guys. Message of the week this week. It is not death a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. That's from Marcus Aurelius. So, don't just accept things. Don't just go with the flow or just let life happen. You got to decide how you want to live and chase your dream, and remember that every day. Every day could be your last. You might not wake up tomorrow. And think about, if you didn't, would you be happy with the life you live? Did you do enough? Did you do the things you wanted to do? If not, make sure you shoot for that tomorrow. Give it your all and leave it all out there every day. Like I said, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Like, subscribe, and share episode 2 of the Daily Dose Podcast. Have a great week.